Okay. Good evening and good afternoon. I am blessed to be here with Dan Ratner. Rose is on her way. Ahaderech, we say in Hebrew, on the road. She's in transit and she will join us shortly. I'm so excited to meet you, Dan, because let me tell you, I didn't know about you. And I think it was about 3 months ago. And I remember exactly who it was. A couple of the members would send in feedback. You got to meet this Dan guy. You got to meet this Dan guy. And I'm like, I've never heard of you. And actually, my very best friend is in Seattle. She's a very old friend of mine. I mean, we're not both old, but an old friend of mine in Seattle. And she goes, you got to meet Dan Ratner. And I thought, I never heard of you. I mean, you're a little bit under the radar for a while.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I'm really just arriving on the radar in a lot of ways. I mean, I've been doing this work for a long time, but I had plans to get out there and talk to people. And we really only started the podcast, I think it was in late October. So it's not been long.
Wow. Wow.
How long have you guys been doing this?
So yes, this is TMS Roundtable Global. I'm Dr. Tova Goldfein, and I partnered with Rose Hoy and Mike Galinsky because we were so redneck under the collar, like what's it called? We had no idea what to do. I mean, like I've been a chiropractor for 35 years and then into rehab and then getting into mind body and just loving, helping people. And Rose was, this was like March 2020. Rose was like the captain helping Mike Galinsky with All the Rage in Australia. And then I was helping Mike Galinsky in Israel. So Corona comes and I dialed up Michael Galinsky and I said, Corona came like 6 months after he had been here. I think, he had been here in September and then Corona came. And I said, something's got to happen. We got to do something. And he's like, call Rose. Next thing we knew, a few months later, we had TMS Roundtable, which was my idea of like a round table because I want to like not talk so much. I want a dialogue. So that's when we kind of started. So March a year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're telling me Michael Galinsky was very key then in getting this going?
We were like, he knows everything about broadcast. And he's like, Tova, I don't know everything, and I'm like, okay, so get us on. He said, I'll be on with you a few times and then you girls are going to take it. So he's just like, he comes on every time we need to have someone and he's always amazing. You've had him on your show. He's amazing.
He's amazing. Well, actually, I have a story about him though.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you saw the episode where I had him on, but I got told the story.
I'm too busy to watch your show.
All right. Well, I encourage you to check it out. It's pretty good. I think it's pretty good, but I'm biased. But so Michael and I talked when he was making All the Rage. I was excited about it. I'd heard about it. And I was.
Where were you at? And you were out of pain, but you were starting to do this work.
Yeah, it wasn't. It actually wasn't. It was probably maybe a year or two after I had wrapped up my chronic back pain, my 8-year episode with chronic back pain, everyday back pain. And I was starting to see patients in this way, and I was starting to develop my own way of doing it. I was doing supervision with Eric Sherman and kind of gauging how much do I like to do it like him?
Wow,
how much of it do I see it my own way? And that's I'm sure a theme that you guys hear about all the time that we all.
I mean, like everyone, it's like we're such an art.
Mm-hmm.
And then with each person, we evolve into more of our art, and it doesn't always look the same.
No, I think it can't look the same because we have to be us. Yeah. I help people by being me, and partly because I'm encouraging them to be them. But Michael has this important role in my story.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear it.
So Michael and I were talking about the movie, and I was just saying, like, I can't believe how much this has changed my life to think this way and to feel powerful. And I was saying to him that I was seeing a therapist at the time who didn't believe in any of this, and I was like, I keep trying to show him. I'm like, you saw me get better within 6 weeks. What do you think is happening here? And he still didn't believe it. And I was just kind of jokingly complaining. I wasn't thinking about anything really. I was just like, some people don't get it. This therapist can be helpful in other ways. Yeah. And Michael said to me, how can you see somebody for therapy that doesn't believe in what you do? respect what you do. And it was very jarring at the time, but I feel like Michael is he's a good catalyst for in his own life and in other people.
Amazing conduit. And I always say, you got to be a therapy, because I have my patients talk to him and I say, please take some money. He's like, he loves it. He'd be a great coach, but you know what? He's a producer.
He does what he does, but we all affect change.
It's an amazing story. It's an amazing. So wait, so did you shifted from that therapist?
Yeah, well, that was December of 2014, and I kind of took this therapist to task even more than I had before, saying, look, you're not seeing who I am. You're not seeing how important this is to me, and I don't understand why not. You know, that's part of your job, is to take in who I am. And he just couldn't get it. He just couldn't. And so it was a huge moment of change in my life. I eventually told him I was going to stop seeing him. And this was after 9.5 years.
Oh my goodness. That's a long friggin' time.
Yeah, it's a very long time.
Wait a minute, that's a long time.
No, it's way too long, but it's also even longer if you knew.
We're not going to talk about that, but that's another thing we should talk about.
I have a totally different take on everything since that time. This was the first moment that I would actually say this was the beginning of my ideas about the power column. I don't know if you know this about my work, but I work with essentially 3 different columns.
Yeah. You told us last time, but you explain it again. Yeah. Explain it again to our listeners.
Yeah. So the emotions column is pretty in line with what Sarno said. It's pretty in line with what a lot of TMS people think. Basically, your emotions and knowing those emotional themes can lead to symptoms in the moment and sometimes chronically related to an emotional experience. So that's one side of what I do. But as I was recovering, I found that Sarno said you have to believe in the diagnosis. And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense.
You mean he said you have to believe that this is 100% psychological?
Yes. To buy in. You know how he said about 15 to 20% of people could accept this. And I was like, well, why is that? I don't know. So I started playing with the idea of, it's not just that we have to accept it. It's also, how can we get people to accept it? Let's see if we can broaden that. That was the beginning of the doubt column. And I had this session with Eric Sherman where I just peppered him with questions because I wanted him to see me in therapy, but he was like, I can't because you have a therapist. But I had this one session that was great. And that was the beginning of the doubt column. Getting rid of that therapist was the beginning of the power column.
Wow. So this therapist was also a messenger for you, and so was Michael Galinsky.
Yes, they came in very different forms.
But 9 years is way too long.
No. I mean, I think I was receiving the message for a long time.
Listen, but it was working for you. You obviously are smart enough to know that it's another story. But go ahead. So the columns are doubt.
Yes, I think of them. I mean, look, you could draw them horizontally. They could be rows, but I developed it in a way where when people meet with me, we do these mind-body maps, because if they're going to accept that this is what's going on, then we need to be able to describe it well. And I'm just
describe it with the monkey brain, like with the logic. You mean describe it?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, to me, I couldn't accept. This was just for me. I couldn't accept something that didn't make full sense.
Of course.
And even Sarno said some things that to me didn't make full sense. Like he says, I believe that oxygen deprivation can cause pain, and I believe that can come from the mind. But what I didn't understand is, why is that the only thing? It doesn't ring true. He had this thing in his book, The Divided Mind. You know Candace Pert?
Yes, I have her books on my shelf. She's amazing. May she rest in peace.
Yeah,
she rest in peace. Yeah.
Exactly. But she lived such a great life, and she, or at least from the outside perspective. Yeah. So he mentioned her book, Molecules of Emotion, in The Divided Mind. And I thought, I need to know what's really happening. He says she can describe it. He didn't really explain it too much. So I went and read Molecules of Emotion, and I was like, I don't think Sarno read this book. Not entirely. I think he glanced over it, or somebody told him a synopsis or something, because
I think it's important to just say to the listeners that what I got from Candace Pert was one very amazing line. This may be the line you're talking about, is that the body is the unconscious mind. That the body is the unconscious. Forget the body. The body is the unconscious.
Yes.
And the brain is the brain. And that's why the unconscious and the body are so connected in being, they're intimately connected. They're one. I mean, is that what you were going to say about?
It's actually not. I didn't remember that line, but
No.
but I will say this: that line must have seeped into me because it's so in line with what I think, and it's a beautiful line. So I'm glad you highlighted it.
Yeah.
What I was going to say actually is I needed the science, and she described these things called peptides, which are just the messenger between the brain and every cell, and that clicked because what it said is oxygen deprivation is just one of thousands of things that the mind and body can do together. Now that made sense to me.
Yeah.
So I went on a quest to have it all make sense. And I found myself on a bigger quest. I wasn't just on a quest to find out about the symptoms. I ended up on the quest I had always been on, which was to figure out me.
Whoa.
And I did not.
What does pain do? It just lesson about you or them, or it's and go ahead. I want to hear you.
I mean, that's well said, because I think nothing taught me more about me than my back or my body, really, in general, because I had other symptoms too.
Right. But what do you mean by it's more than just oxygen deprivation?
Well, oxygen deprivation is just one physicality that can come from mind-body experience. But the mind can make the body do any function that it has. All the functions exist.
Right.
There's no reason that the mind can't make those things happen. So if somebody gets physically ill, throwing up or something, that can happen for emotional reasons. You can have problems with blood flow or tingling. You can have itchiness. You can have a rash. You can have pain in any place. Here's another thing that didn't make sense to me. Why were people admitting that, yes, we can have tension headaches, but we can't have back pain from this?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. The body and the mind work one way.
Right.
And I felt like there were too many discrepancies that I needed to get answered.
Right. Well, and also, Sarno came so far. And then, then you have your David Hanscom, and then you have even Dr. Scribner is taking the neuro pathway much further. Mm-hmm. The neuro pathway and Schechter, they've taken the science much further, and it's still this passionate thing. Like, I took a course with Howard Schubert. I was just like, what a passionate guy. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think these guys just such passion about helping, and he spends time with people, and so what I'm saying is that in honor of Sarno, it's like he was just, and he was the one who said, I don't even need to do any research. Look at my patient files. And I think he was really, who knows what was in his mind. So you're a scientist because you wanted to figure things out. Where I just, so you're good because you created a concept with crushing doubt. I mean, all of our patients doubt.
Yeah.
And even the notes I'm reading, Scribner's notes, he's like, you've got to get them to believe that it's psychological, or you can't really go much further.
Right.
But I want to hear how you just woke up one day and said, because crushing doubt is like, I can't think of two other words that would describe what we're dealing with as patients and as the healers, because, we're healing ourselves all the time. And I can't imagine where that came from. If you could share like where that birth was.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to get deep.
Okay, good.
So first of all, when I came up with the phrase crushing doubt, one of the things that I liked about it is that it had a double meaning. Because I feel like this experience has a double meaning too. We exist in the space of being riddled with doubt, having no idea where we're going.
Why?
Well, when we're in chronic pain.
In chronic pain, yeah.
There's other doubts in life, but certainly in my pain experience.
No, it comes from insecurity. We doubt because we're human. It's a human.
Right. So let's jump. I'm going to share some personal stuff about me, which I tend to do, and actually, it's a big part of how I've changed my therapy process.
Yeah.
I grew up in a process of doubt in a way, because in a lot of ways I have a great family, but this is a story you hear from many people. I have a great family in some ways, and in other ways, some bad things happened. And one of the things that happened is that I felt that my reality was never fully seen. And some of that was even by me. And this is because it started when I was a baby. So when I was a baby, my father died when I was 6 weeks old. So I came into trauma. I mean, I'm a believer that trauma makes people grow if they can survive
Channel it. They can channel it. Survive.
Yeah.
Survive it.
And
so even in the womb.
Yeah. He was dying of cancer at the time I was in the womb.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Really.
So I came into this world with a mother who was grappling with that loss, and actually grappling with the juxtaposition of that loss with the gain of me. And so my very identity was built into this loss that I didn't even know about. I have an older brother, and he was 3, and so he had lost a person that he knew, whereas I lost any opportunity to know my father. So we also had this very different experience, and he and I grappled with that because we both were hurting in some huge ways, and he felt I couldn't understand him, and I probably couldn't in a lot of ways, but I was aware of that. It was hard for him to understand how I would be hurting at all because I hadn't lost this person specifically. So as a result, I felt really on an island just right from the start, and full of doubts about who am I and do I belong. Then the plot even thickened where my mom met my dad now when I was about 1.5. And they dated for a while, and I remember being at their wedding when I was 3.
No way.
I only remember like a snapshot, but I do remember it. And 3 years later, they decided that they were going, that my dad was going to formally adopt us. And this is a wonderful event, and it's a wonderful gesture, but it was complicated for me. It just it was another area that opened up doubt. Who am I? Which family do I really belong to? What's my name? Who am I? You know? And I think I carried around that pain of doubt my whole life. And I was doing okay. I was thriving in a lot of ways, but when the back pain hit, I was 28 years old. Now, my biological father died when he was 29, which is very young, obviously. I also had no idea why he died. So that, I mean, talk about doubt.
29?
29. And you know why? I have come to feel that this is why he died. He had a very traumatic background himself. And his mother died when he was 6. His father was abusive. They were in foster care for several years. There were 3 of them. His older brother was a pretty damaged guy. And so he had so much trauma, and he had no awareness, really. So I think that the unprocessed trauma
turned into cancer.
The ACE study, if people out there don't know what that is, I know you know what it is, Tova.
Adverse childhood experiences. A lot of our viewers, Rose and I talk about it all the time.
It's such an important study.
Yeah.
And I hang on to certain studies that I know how to use for different parts of the experience. But the ACE study is the one that really helps to show the depth of emotional pain and how much it can play out in the physical process.
Yeah.
This study shows that, people who had adverse childhood experiences are much more likely to have all kinds of issues, including heart disease, cancer.
Their immune system's compromised. The nervous system and immune system are compromised.
They've been in danger their whole lives internally. And I was like that in my own way. So where does crushing doubt come from?
Right.
I would say it comes from who I am. It comes from who I am and the observations I was making. But I am very driven when I've had a bad experience and I understand it, to try to make sure other people don't have that experience, no matter what it is.
That's the beauty of it. See, you a lot of people would be very self-absorbed. They would be, victim. They'd be, the world owes me something. You decided to, to channel it to help people, because that would lift you and whoever you're helping. So it's beautiful. Continue. It's beautiful.
And I think I was always that way, because I sensed and felt in the body also my mom's sadness, and my brother's sadness, and I wanted them to be better. I don't mean better people. I mean, feel better. But and this is another reason why I'm so somatic. I mean, the first year of my life, I couldn't even talk. It was all preverbal. And I think I just soaked in the feeling of physicality being emotion. This is similar to what Candace Pert said. I think of the body as just a giant brain. It's just an extension of the brain.
That's so interesting, because they talk about, the colon as a small brain, and I imagine every organ could be, if you think about it, it's like, this is like Star Trek. It's like main control, and then you've got little other control things, because all the organ in it, that's fascinating to think about.
It's a helpful
body, as as a doctor, it's just like, I mean, how dare we even question the human body when it, like, you take an egg and a sperm and it makes a human being. It's like,
I know. See, this is the thing. The things that the mind and body can already do are so much more amazing even than what we're saying it can do for the mind body issue.
Exactly. So I get frustrated, not frustrated. I get like, if we could just learn in first grade about the human body and what it does and the power that your heart's beating in your, then people maybe we could teach. It's all about education, because people aren't in touch with their body. You at a very young age were forced to be in touch with your body, and then it was in balance until you had somatic pain. But it's so true, Dan. It's so true.
I think trauma teaches that. But then the question is, what do we do with people who haven't experienced trauma, which is great that they haven't, but we've got to help people to understand these things more. Actually, I was struck by what you were saying. We do have to teach people about this, but I think the problem is how does that teaching go? Because these things are being taught, but they're being taken for granted.
They are. And they're not being prioritized.
No. I mean, it's like when you're looking at a beautiful scene in nature, and you're like, oh, that's nice.
Right.
No.
Why are we learning about math and science in school, and economy, and or finances? Like, why aren't we learning about the human body? Why is home ec or gym like a slight? And again, we can't change the system, and that's not what the show is about, but we are educating. That's what you're doing and I'm doing. And we talked about before the show how this is it was a lot of work we do, and we don't charge for this, and we're so rewarded. We're so rewarded, and it's such a gift. And I think that we're attracting more and more people. And I think the more of us that can do this work and talk about it and talk about our own, and the fact is, I just want to say to the viewers, we're all human. I mean, because Joe Dispenza can heal his back, it doesn't mean he's subhuman. It means he has a purpose. He just took his brain and focused it. You took your childhood and you channeled it. I took my chaotic childhood and I spent the rest of my life, healing the wounds and dragging my tail behind me. But I'm moving. Rose calls me resilient, you know, and Rose has had a difficult life, but she pushes, you know? So I think it's about purpose. We had this guy on the show called Dave Lyons who has MS, and he's a bodybuilder, and he was like, you know, very difficult life regarding his father was in the concentration camps. You know, he was a son of a survivor. But long story short, he's feeling better. He's doing some stem cell for his MS. He has a program called like MS Optimal Workout, and he is so driven with his purpose. And that's the power of belief. That's the biology of gratitude. And so I think, and I tell patients, you know, find a purpose. It could be just, I'm making it to tomorrow. You know, I'm dealing with my pain. And I think the crushing doubt concept is about purpose. It's like, not that you have to be like, I'm angry. It's like, I can hold a vessel for my pain, my grief. You know, I can crush doubt and I can believe. I can be a believer. It's actually like a love story.
I think that's a great way of putting it. There's nothing. Here's the other place that crushing doubt came from. There's nothing in the world that made me believe in something bigger than me, than this experience. Not that I always thought.
Is that like your ego thing or something?
No. That's what I was going to clarify. I wasn't thinking I was so great. It was actually quite the opposite. I thought that I was nothing special. This made me feel that I was special, and I don't mean special like above other people, but I mean not below other people.
Yeah, well, you had something to offer, and you were going to go out there on a limb.
And it came from who I am and what I can offer to the world. This process of being in this role and doing these things makes me feel like I'm being me with the world, with the universe. I'm not. There's nothing stopping me from that. Before I had the pain, I was trying to be a good person, and I would say that I was being a good person, but I was more being a good person in my actions, and I was a good person inside. Now I'm aligned with that goodness on the outside too.
I want to talk about the goodness. I wanted to step back a little bit and talk a little bit about your pain, because I want people to see how, you know, human. I mean, were you a people pleaser? Tell us a little bit about.
Oh yeah. Yes, I hope you like that about me.
I do.
Oh my God, was I a people pleaser? I mean, I came into the world this baby trying to entertain my mom and my brother, and I carried it everywhere I went. And I used to think, okay, well, if I can just make everybody like me, not for me even, but just like, I wanted to make the world a better place. I always felt like that was the purpose. I remember in grad school, I was talking to some, I would say they were kind of more jaded than me. And they were saying, why'd you get into this field? And I knew what they were asking, because a lot of people ask that question, and they think the field of psychology, and they think that the answer is secretly you got into it for you. And that's always going to be true to some degree. But I was like, look, you can say that's a reason, but that is not the reason.
Right.
The reason I'm here, you're going to laugh at me, but it's because I want to help people.
Yeah.
and they kind of mocked it. They I think they had read some Ayn Rand or something. They were very, very jaded people. And I was like, how are you going to help somebody if that's how you're thinking of it? I just, there has to be a generosity.
Did you feel alone? Were you like the kind of person in college? Because I know you got it like during grad school, you got the pain or something.
It was in grad school.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what was going on. Did you have a breakup with a girlfriend? Like, what else was going on for you?
It was actually quite the opposite. I'll get into that. So, well, let me first answer the question of did I feel alone? I always felt alone. I have felt alone my whole life until I had my first child.
Wow.
It was the first time that I didn't feel alone, because suddenly I was central to someone. I had never been central to anyone.
Wow.
Never. And I didn't know. I mean, I knew that having a kid can change you, but before all of that, I had hundreds of friends. Lots of people liked me, but I felt alone. I felt like nobody understands what I'm experiencing. I didn't even totally know what I was experiencing myself. So in grad school, I got there and I thought, okay, these people are probably going to be pretty like-minded people, if anywhere. And I got there, and I was shocked to find that my grad school class was so locked up with themselves that they were not ready to connect for the most part.
Right.
And so
you were deep. You grew up very sensitive, very deep, very insightful, very thoughtful.
I did. My family, my grandma was a child analyst. My aunt is a child analyst. My mom's a social worker and therapist and ran a nursery school. And so the women in my family were really the dominant force of my life. Right. And that was another way I felt alone. I felt like I was a man who believed that the way to live life was much more the way women were living it, from what I could see. Mm. And that has served me very well. I don't regret that at all, but it made navigating like male aggression and toxic masculinity all the harder in some ways. Sure. But ultimately I did very well with that. I got through that just fine, but I did feel very alone and different a lot of the time. And then in grad school, I would say I was disappointed, and it felt like it was another experience of beating my head against a brick wall, because I was always trying to connect. Wow. And what I found is it seemed like I could only connect to people if I was there for them.
Interesting.
They loved that.
Yeah.
And they loved me for that. And I loved those connections. But I was not getting to connect the other way.
It wasn't real. It was temporary.
It was temporary. I think it was helpful for them. But
right. Well, it's so interesting for so many of us, I think, what you're saying. Like, you're putting it into words, this emptiness that you felt, and yet, well, you're helping them.
Yeah.
So it was like somehow rewarding, but.
And then I was starting to do it professionally. So I was like, I guess my whole life is just to help people just get better. And I don't know what there is for me.
Right.
So that was a big part of it. I was in my fourth year of grad school that began. And you had asked, was there a breakup or anything like that? Actually, and I said it was the opposite. I was 6 months into my relationship with my wife.
Okay.
And we had just hit this like barrier in the relationship where I was trying to connect with her and she was having a hard time doing that. And so it was repeating again.
Wow. The same pattern.
Same pattern over and over. And I was just like, I guess. And if I understood what I understand now, then I would have thought to myself, no, this feeling of hopelessness about all of this is because you don't feel that you can change. You're in the same loop with you. Right. But I didn't know that at the time. Right. It was the body that started that. And here's the other reason that doubt came into play in the first place, because fear is another form of doubt. And when I first got a twinge in my back,
fear is another form of doubt. Yeah, very, very, very. Wait, fear is another form of doubt.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the doubt whether you're going to be safe.
Yeah.
It's doubt whether you're going to be okay. I think of it as the emotional form.
So the fear is the resistance is another form of doubt.
Yes. Okay. It is. Doubt is everywhere. It pops up in everything.
Wow.
I mean, about that.
Okay. So, let me think about that.
You keep thinking about that.
I'll be back. I'm going to go think about it.
Yeah, you go ahead. I'll take over.
This is mine and Rose's show, and Rose is somewhere looking for a place to come on her internet. So we're waiting for you, Rosie. So go ahead. So you were in 6 months in relationship with your wife to be, and she was having a hard time connecting with you because you were like a little bit empty. So she was feeling the emptiness, and you're feeling the emptiness. Then what?
Oh, actually, it was actually she had connected with people even less than me. I was feeling her emptiness, and I was inviting her to come to me and not be empty. and I couldn't get through to her. It was not the other way around.
Got it.
I shouldn't say that. Maybe it was also the other way around. But
Well, I'll have her on the show next week. We'll talk about it.
We'll find out. Yeah, I mean, you can tell me what's going on in the marriage. But so I think I felt simultaneously well liked and rejected at the same time. It was like I was well liked, but not for who I was at my core.
Right.
I was well liked for like a set of behaviors that
like
people
were using you. You felt used.
I don't know that I would have put it into those words, and I don't even know that I would put it into those words now. Yeah. What I would just say is that I had a lot of channels not open to myself in my relationship with myself, and it made it so that I was just casting about looking for ways to.
Well, and then you were repressing feelings, and you got major back pain.
I did. And the other thing is when I got that first twinge, I remember thinking, uh-oh, what if this develops into something bad? Now that question, what if? That's a doubt right there.
Yeah.
It's an understandable doubt. But that doubt led me down the path of doubt. One doubt leads to another, and it just keeps going and going and going.
So you use the doubt to propel you, not paralyze you.
Yeah. But back then, it expanded into a universe of doubt. So the words crushing doubt, that first meaning is how much doubt there is. And it was crushing. I did not know how I would ever get out of this. And when I started seeing doctors and not getting answers.
You felt hopeless. You felt hopeless.
I did. I had suicidal ideation. I was like, why? What's worth it here? And meanwhile, this is probably a theme that you guys have heard a lot. Chronic pain is a very lonely existence. It can be. I'm hoping it's getting better with communities like you have and I have and we have together. Mm-hmm. But I felt completely alone. I felt that people didn't understand it. I felt that people would kind of say, they would give it lip service. They would say, oh, I'm sorry. But they wouldn't actually envision it. And I had this experience.
It's uncomfortable to, just like we talk about grief and pain, and it's uncomfortable. We don't know how to hold a place. So go ahead. So people were uncomfortable around you. So when you had the pain, was another level of loneliness when you had pain?
Yes. Wow. It just was like, wow, another level of loneliness. It just, I would say I had great connections in certain ways. I'm not trying to paint a bleak picture of my life because I had a very good life.
You went forward. You were going forward with your work and your career, and you got married to this woman. So,
and I had good friends that I still have to this day. So I did have real connections, but there was a part of me that wasn't getting to get connected to anyone until my daughter. Now I have two daughters, and they both I connect with them. Wow. And since then, everything has changed. I can say more about that, but the feeling I had at that time was, oh my God, I'm totally alone and people don't know. And then I would have people come up to me and say, oh my God, I had back pain for like the last week. Is this what it's like? I didn't know. And I was like, yeah, that's what I've been telling you, So I think that's a lot of times, it's just like what you said with the teaching. We can say the words, but if people aren't actually going there in their imaginations fully, they're not really taking it in, they're not going to understand.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I saw there's a comment coming in that.
Yeah, I'll repeat the comments. We'll just honor these people.
Yeah.
Hi, Susie. Susie says, isn't a sense of wonder key? I think she was to the very beginning.
It is actually, that fits with what I just said, because we need other people to have a sense of wonder about us, but we also need to have a sense of wonder about ourselves.
Yes.
And I think that's a very helpful thing in trying to get better from symptoms. It's hard to do when you're suffering so much.
Yeah.
But when you start to get better, that's when you can have a sense of wonder.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're talking about loneliness, and a lot of us TMSers, it's like we want to be appreciated by people. We want attention from people. We know that. And yet, we feel lonely. And then we do have to go to a different place to get better. And it's actually not a lonely place, but it feels like we have to go deeper. But I don't want to call it lonely. I want to call it, because you're connecting with yourself, but we so don't appreciate or know that that's going to be helpful, because it just feels scary.
Yeah.
You know, and doubtful. So Paula says, we try to please people and make them, here, I'll show you. You can put it up here. We try to please. Rose is here. Good timing. Excellent. Good timing, Rose. Earth. Yofi. Yofi is wonderful in Hebrew. Hi. Oh, I'm so glad. You on your phone or you're on your computer?
No, I'm on my phone in the car in a rest area.
In the car. I love it. Everything's okay?
Sure, but I haven't got. When I spoke to you before, it was a petrol station that came up, and there was no place to sort of go inside.
Right.
So I thought, I'll continue on till I get to a proper sort of place where there was food and everything.
Yeah.
And now I've just been continuing to drive, so I've just pulled into a truck stop on the side of the road.
That's fine.
Lock the doors.
Lock your door.
Yeah, lock your doors, please.
Listen, so we've been waiting for you, and you'll be able to see the beginning of the show on tape. It's been an interesting story. Like I just will say that with the help of God, Dan's been really open and honest and vulnerable, like about his life and his past and it's really very heartfelt.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I hope you talked a lot about the crushing of
doubt,
of people's spirits and things. Did you?
Well, that's actually, we were just talking about it. Maybe a couple minutes ago. I was talking about the double meaning of crushing doubt, because
good.
How lonely pain can be, how much other people who aren't having pain struggle to empathize with us, and it can make us feel hopeless.
Yeah. Some relatives have we're on air, aren't we?
Yeah, we are on air.
Yeah.
we're
live. Some relatives have chronic pain, and you never know what to say, because you can't really ask them, well, what other problems have they got, because they're they're family members. So.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop me.
We're live. So I was just going over some of the comments. Paula has shared some comments, so I want to just
good.
Yeah, I want to just mention them because she's asking a question to Dan. So we try to please people and make them all laugh. We make them happy, because at the root of it, we feel responsible for the wrongs in the world. And the breakthrough is that none of it is our fault at all. Do you find, Dan, that many fall into the I'm all alone mindset? Rose would call this attachment disorder.
Yeah, I mean, it goes by many different names. But if you're labeling it in a helpful way, the name will apply. I really love what Paul is saying here, because I do think at the root of it, we do feel responsible for all the wrongs. I felt responsible for my father's death. I felt responsible for my mom's depression. I felt responsible for my brother's loss of my father. I felt responsible for them not being happy. And there's not much way to interpret it other than that when you're a baby. Babies interpret things and they think, well, what am I doing? What did I do? Everything is about themselves at the time. And thankfully I didn't go in a narcissistic direction with that, but I did go in a direction that was very hard on me. And I would say I was not empathic to me at all, and for the most part, until I discovered Sarno and understood what my body was saying. I went through 40 years of life without being very empathic to myself.
Wow. And can you tell us, this is a very key, because we get stuck in our monkey brain about being empathetic and being compassionate. So if you could, we have to get there through our mind, but tell us in your words, Dan, I want to learn how to be compassionate. And what can you give the viewers, like, from the mind to the body, which is this road we're traveling, the head to the heart? Tell us how we can be compassionate and empathetic to ourselves, because that is healing.
It's a wonderful question. I would say this. My 3 columns, each one of them has empathy in it, but different kinds. And I'm going to kind of lay out what you can get out of them. The emotions column is the kind of empathy that you can get in therapy, you can get, in reading Sarno, and really the whole mind-body community understands that you can have these emotional themes that lead to pain, and being understanding towards yourself about them through understanding yourself, truly understanding it, is great. But I will say this, it's the second 2 columns that provided me the empathy more than anything else. Allowing yourself to have the doubt and honoring your own questions, that is a form of self-empathy. You have to let in your questions and say, these are valid. I don't know why, and I need to know. So that's a form of it. When you get an answer that you like, that feels right to you, letting that be your answer, that's also self-empathy. That's saying, I can believe in me. I can let my view matter. But it's the third column, the power column, that really gets you self-empathy. So I happen to note something Paula was saying in one of her later comments. She says, once you identify there was trauma in your life, childhood, and see it clearly, is there a straightforward walking out the journey of healing from the trauma? That's right in line with what the power column is. So in the power column, I have this thing that I've developed over time from listening to people and trying to help them, that we can develop what I call a core narrative. And the core narrative is, who are we? Who are we at our core? What happened to us? And it's always the core narrative is always phrased in an empathic way. You have to find it's like an emotional mantra of true self-empathy. And if it's fake, it can't work. You have
the body will tell you if you're.
It will tell you.
Yeah.
It will tell you. And you use the symptoms to tell your story. If the symptoms, Tova, we were talking about how my symptoms came up in grad school. I was trying to connect so hard. I was working so hard to connect, and I was there. I was present for those people. They weren't present for me.
Right.
And that hurt. That hurt a lot. When we graduated, I'm not saying this to malign anybody, but just as an observation.
I would believe that you also may not have had the ability completely to let those people in because you were in this.
Oh, yeah, it could have been partly a two-way thing. But when we graduated, after 5 years together, we had that ceremony and we came outside, and I was ready to greet everybody and say our goodbyes, and they just left. They all just disappeared from each other too, not just from me. So I think I could then, looking back on the evolution of my symptoms and what I was experiencing, the theme of my life was, I'm here and nobody cares. Mm. That's what it was like to arrive into the world, in my world. And I understand they did care. I'm not saying that they didn't, but that's how I perceived certain things. And it was even partially true. Yeah. This baby was here, but they were wrecked.
Right.
So I think accepting the trauma, because I didn't want to accept that I had trauma. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm a go-getter. I can conquer it all. I had a real, that's another part of the kind of goodest.
How did you get out of being a victim? Because you had to feel like a victim. How did you work on, I'm an architect of this life. I'm not going to be a victim of this situation.
Well, the interesting thing is I couldn't start building my life until I accepted my life.
That's true. Excellent.
And I couldn't. So I don't think I was seeing myself as a victim at all. In fact, I was saying to myself, you cannot be a victim. No. You're no different than anybody else. Go live your life. I had to actually accept that I'm not like everybody else. I had a different story. It's okay to have my story. That's self-empathy, is to accept that you have your own story. I would say self-empathy is about accepting you as you are.
What do you think, Rose?
Can you also add, Dan, something about the fact that it's not a victim, it's about courage to have survived trauma.
Yeah,
that's the thing to acknowledge within yourself, the courage that you did survive it, and then see how your defenses are still operating in you, and have courage to actually cut them out as well.
That's
and
beautiful.
Acknowledge them. You know, defiance and compliance and sarcasm, all those things are all methods to keep us away from being hurt. But if we notice that we've just been hurt, and that it's okay, and that we're not a victim, we're a conqueror of it all, that's the difference, I think. And knowing that you did the best you could within the time, you know, within that situation, and acknowledging that, as you said, acknowledging fully that you were awesome to survive maybe alcoholic household, death in the family, all those bullying, all those small things. You actually are still going and still doing your best. So you know,
true.
That's so wonderful, and I couldn't agree more. And I just want to highlight it in a particular way. I don't love that trauma happens to anybody, but my favorite people are traumatized because they're so real. And
even Gabor Matai is traumatized, and he talks about traumatized people.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that what Rose is saying is really important, and it's right in line with the power column. The core narrative celebrates your victory over trauma.
Exactly.
But it's not just through survival. It's also through recognizing that the trauma has made you great in a way. I'm not saying that we like that it happened or that we would wish for it, but my trauma, I don't actually regret it, because I wouldn't be me without it.
Exactly.
Now that I value me,
you're taking responsibility also. You weren't thrown into this world. You were given this, and you're like, okay, I'm responsible. No one's to blame.
I'm gonna do something with it.
Yeah, I think that's a bit hard though for people
to
accept and cope with. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think what you're saying. Go ahead, Rose. Let me just jump in with this. I think what you're saying, to me, is the most important first step in transforming trauma. You have to give yourself credit for just surviving. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's right. I'm jumping to the end. I'm telling you like how you can transform that eventually. But I don't want anybody to think that happened overnight. I went to therapy for 20 years, didn't get really anything out of that from this perspective. I didn't accept my trauma. I didn't find true self-empathy. It was my symptoms that drove me towards it. And first, I did have to take a lot of time to give myself credit for just surviving. That was it. Nothing else. I'm just saying, exactly. I think there's something beyond it. If you, yeah. But I do think there's something beyond it potentially, and it can be hard to get there. But I think it's. I
think, Dan, when you sort of help a person to see the pattern in their lives and how they've survived it all, it draws that understanding that yes, I did this despite all the problems that I was facing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that can make the person feel powerful. Wow, I did that.
Yeah.
I survived it. I'm still I'm not only still a good person, maybe I'm a particularly good person, actually.
And many TMS people and chronic pain people and autoimmune disease, they're successful people. that have done A, B, and C successful, and then the pain comes and they're like crushed. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I said, but you did this successful. You were able to accomplish that. So you have that pattern also. So it's interesting that they get to look at it. So that's partly, just response to that.
Yeah. But the power column is about turning this negative narrative about you into something positive. It's not turning the experience into something positive. Mm-hmm. It's turning your narrative about you into something positive. I was drawn to another message from Penny. You want to read it, Tova, or should I?
Yeah. Penny says, hi, Dan. Absolutely fascinated by what you are saying. Interested to hear how you think someone can crack that feeling of loneliness if they can't have children.
Yeah.
Dan was saying how he felt lonely until he had his first child.
Yeah.
And then he was able to understand a sense of connection. So this is what Penny's speaking about.
Yeah. There's lots of ways to not be lonely. That's just the first way that I discovered it. You do not have to have kids to not be lonely. It's in fact, for a long time, then I was lonely with my kid. It was just me and her. And I'm only talking about a particular way of connectedness. Mm-hmm. I would say the main way that you can crack that feeling of loneliness is to connect with you.
It's the only way.
Yeah. I mean, my kid gave me an inkling of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It gave you insight that you were missing.
Yes. Yeah. But then I realized, wow, I'm not connecting with me. Not right away. It was really the body stuff that taught me that. So
just another way,
mm-hmm.
And maybe Rose, you want to comment, maybe Penny, another way would be to accept that loneliness is not a negative thing. It's a tunnel to go through, to learn something. And that doesn't have to be a negative thing. I mean, now we like being alone. So I think loneliness has this negative, it can be a positive thing depending on how we use it. Right, Rose?
Well, no, I wouldn't really see it like that. Mm-hmm. I'd see it more that it's not, I don't know. The idea is that there's an emptiness in people. The loneliness and the emptiness come together because they haven't, in attachment theory, that resonance hasn't come from their primary caregiver to allow them to know that they're full human beings, really, in a way, without getting too technical about it.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know, what's funny though, and this speaks to what we're talking about. So I heard you guys talking about the different ideas and you were seeing it differently. And all I could think was, how can I get them to see it the same way? How can I help them? I mean, this is who I am,
No, I mean, we don't have to.
I know you don't care.
Way. No, we just gave some great options for looking at loneliness. And they were both kind of positive. They're positive.
But look at what happened inside me. This is and I know this about me. And I know it had nothing to do with you guys. It has to do with me. So
were you sensing some negative, some discomfort because we were disagreeing?
No, I wasn't even sensing it in you. I was just aware that in me, I have this old thing of I have to have everybody get along. And actually, it's been so freeing. I just wanted to note it because I thought it was interesting. But there's something so freeing about the fact that we could sit here and have different ideas, and it doesn't matter. We all can be us.
Yeah.
I'm me. You guys are each you. I'm interested in each of you.
Yeah.
I'm interested in you knowing me, and we're all here together. And that's a very different way of looking at it than that old reptilian brain that jumped in there for a second.
And what you did was and so here's for the listeners, you saw something, you were aware, even as we're talking, you stop for a second and you're aware of this thought and the players, and you're not judging, you're not blurting it out, you're not criticizing, you're just like, oh, I'm just mindful, I'm just watching, I'm conscious. And this is the beauty of thought.
Yeah, I was just curious about me. Why would I be doing that right then? And I figured, well, you know what? I like to live with openness. And I just felt like, well, the powerful thing to do here is not to sit in that moment, but to live life the way that I am advocating others would, and go ahead and tell you who I really am at this moment. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so I also felt like, well, it could be helpful to for somebody to see in the moment me a non-powerful moment where I felt worried or through no fault of your guys' own. But I took it and I said, no, I can do something great here, powerful. And I did it, for me in my journey. But I also, it's partly also because I can feel the trust that I can have with both of you. You both care about people.
Beautiful. It's always important to, I think, to understand. So when your pain went away, was it like gone, or is it like come up whenever you're stressed or when the kids are acting out? Do you get like a little back pain? Like where are you with your pain at this point in your career and your life?
Okay. So briefly, I will say that within about 3 weeks of reading The Divided Mind, which was the second Sarno book I read, that was the one that really got it done. But I had linked a particular emotional experience to the pain, and then the doubt just went way down. So I was like, that makes sense. The minute it makes sense, the doubt comes down. So if it's not making sense, keep asking your questions, and then you can get answers, and keep observing. And what ended up happening was, it was when that therapist I wasn't getting along with went away on vacation, and he went away, and I started to get horrible back pain, much worse than usual. And I was like, I don't understand this. I would love this guy to go on vacation. Why would I be bothered by this? But even though I would love him to go on vacation, I was still experiencing him as a father figure who was rejecting me.
So interesting.
So when I got that, I started to get a sense of things. And then I went to Eric Sherman, had my doubt column session where I asked him 200 questions that I had, and he answered them to my satisfaction. He was very helpful with that. And the symptoms went down a lot, but they didn't go down fully. And that's where I discovered the power column, that plateaus can often be about an impasse with ourselves. And so I just kept asking questions. Why? And I got the symptoms to go down more and more. Now where it is I can get pain from little emotional things, and they can be little. I could just have laid down, and then my daughters call me and say, oh, can I have a donut or whatever? And I'm like, then my heel hurts. And so I can have little things like that. I tend to make those symptoms go away very quickly just through awareness of the emotional connection. If I get into a doubt pattern, that usually comes from when a symptom is lingering and I'm not figuring out what the emotional thing is. So then I start to think about, now am I having doubts? And I start to think about that. And if I can't get through that, then I go to the power column. I think of it kind of linearly. I move over to the power column and ask myself, am I not feeling powerful in some way? And if I don't find any answers there, I go right back to the start, because it's there somewhere.
Right.
It makes sense.
You use your own medicine. Rose, do you have any questions for Dan?
Oh, I have millions of them, but it's the end of the day.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I wish I'd been here to hear the beginning, but it's a really foggy outside. Look, I don't know if you can see it.
We're seeing daylight come in there between Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah. So I haven't. I was looking for a stop that was lighted, but there wasn't one around.
Yeah.
But Dan, I think that the way you've described that doubt coming down, would you just mention that again more for our audience so that they can actually hold that stronger? When doubt comes in, pain comes back. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is what I think of as one of the three sources of pain, though I do think it is actually the most dominant theme. It's the most time people spend in pain is about doubt. And doubt has, I would say, 4 different forms, generally speaking. One is the simple definition of it. It's a lack of certainty. If you're not certain about what's happening, then you don't know, and that can lead to symptoms. If you have unanswered questions, I guess in some ways it's the same thing, but it's another way that it comes to fruition. and you need to get those questions answered. If you're confused, let's say you understand certain parts, but then this other part that you understand doesn't match up. You need a system and a way of understanding it, or else your whole central nervous system is still active. It's still flowing like something's up. I don't know you don't feel safe until you really understand. And the last one is the emotional form of doubt, which is fear. And that tends to lead to the most intense symptoms. In fact, I have found that back spasms are uniformly related to fear. If you have back spasms, it is fear-based. You can have other back issues, but that's such a scary thing. It was the worst for me. I had it for like 2 years, and it was the worst thing I ever experienced.
Wow.
And so those are the 4 forms of doubt, but then there's 3 levels of doubt. And the levels of doubt are, is this TMS? Is this a mind-body issue or not? That's one area where you can have hundreds or even thousands of doubts. And it just creeps in. Go ahead, Rose.
Okay. Could you pause for a second, Dan?
Yeah.
And talk about that for a moment, because most things are TMS, unless there's an injury, a physical injury. And if there is a physical injury, it should only last about 6 weeks at the most.
That's exactly the way I talk to people about it. Yep.
Yeah. So they're the things to not question TMS, but question, has this pain, has this suffering stopped now? And what other suffering is going on in my life?
Exactly. Yeah. When people say, can this be TMS? I don't get past the word can. I'm just like, yes. I know where you're going. The answer is yes. Because almost everything is TMS. Our whole physical experience is almost all TMS.
Yeah. Well, even as a midwife, when I started learning about psychodynamic pain, I mean, I've known about it all along, but how to look at or how to treat it, I realized that, postnatally, women don't let down because of anxiety. That's another form of TMS, like not being able to breastfeed. It's so simple. Mm-hmm. It's another form of TMS.
Yeah, and it affects the body.
Well, that's right. It is the body that's not letting the milk down, not letting it.
That's a great point. I mean, anxiety and even most depression, most experience you have is TMS.
Yeah.
So when I'm, go ahead.
Yeah. So like the take-home thing, as Tova would say, is don't ask what is TMS. Don't how would you put it, Tova? Don't ask, is it TMS? Say it must be TMS, and I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the answer, right? That's the answer to that first level of doubt,
Good
and you're right.
Good one, Rose.
It's absolutely right. What I encourage people, though, is it's okay to ask that question, but the answer is always going to be the same. It's that.
Right.
And so I continue to reassure. I continue to push in the direction of understanding this. And what I say to people is, look, you can become certain. It just takes work. We have to work at what are your questions? Why do you doubt it? Like if we said that to someone, Rose, they could say, okay, yeah, I hear you. That makes sense. And then they walk down the road a little bit and they think, but can it be this? People have doubt creep in anyway, even if we give them those answers. So we want to give those answers again and again and in new comprehensive ways. And that's part of what I've done in the book that I'm writing, is to write out all the different ways that I crushed my own doubt. Because the reason I came to the term crushing doubt is that I have so much of it. And I also was able to get so many answers. So the double meaning of crushing doubt is you can have crushing doubt when you're in the pain thinking you're not going to get out of it, but you can also crush it actively. And to do that, you face it with science and logic, and you come at every angle you need.
Yeah. And look, the other expansion of that is that, doubt has crushed me, that my self-belief is broken, my esteem is broken. That's how the crushing has happened.
Yeah.
My relationships are damaged because I doubt myself, or like that theme that you've put together is just fantastic.
Yes.
Because it encapsulates the whole mental image of our lives.
Yeah.
If we feel we're not enough.
Yeah. And I want to say that, it's funny because like crushing doubt sounds aggressive. And I got involved with a lot of people in Israel because there's an organization about cancer called Let's Meet the Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So let's also meet the doubt. Though the crushing, some people won't be able to meet it until they crush it.
Exactly.
Some people
won't be able to
feel
crush
like
it
I
until
have
you meet
to meet it, and then it's a soft, like it's very, very individual. But the
Yes, it
crushing is like is an excellent concept.
Well, I appreciate your guys' view of that, and it means a lot that you can see the value in it. I agree with you also, Tova, that sometimes they can't meet it until they crush it. Sometimes they can't crush it until they meet it. And so that's what I do is I find out what's this individual mind grappling with that's leading to doubt. There's no one way to do it. There's millions of ways that you can get to doubt, and doubt creeps in all directions. So I can also say that the other two levels of doubt.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
there.
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That was a great. We got a lot out of that, so I'm glad you did. But the second level of doubt is, okay, I totally believe that I have TMS, but how far can TMS go? Can it be cured? Can it be? And cured is a funny word, of course. I like to use the word mastered.
I like that
because mastered does not imply that it is gone for good. It implies that you have your system down that makes you feel safe and you know it and it's comfortable. That's mastered for me. And the third level is, okay, I believe I have TMS. I believe the TMS can be resolved in people, but I'm not sure I can do it. I'm not sure that I have what it takes, or I'm not sure that my circumstances allow for it, or that my personality will get in the way in some way. Some doubt about the self. And I like to highlight these three areas of doubt because it shows you just how much room doubt has to play. And it's all fuel for TMS, all of it. So I deal with doubt every day. I look for it in every nook and cranny, and I'm like, nope, 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 nope.
Wow, really. I think I asked all my questions. I wanted to know because Rose and I, Rose has taught me a lot over the year and a half that we've been together, and doubt is. Would you say doubt is a feeling, Rose? No.
I would say doubt is an experience. It's a
thought.
Place.
It's a thought.
Yeah.
So what's the feeling that you? What's the feeling going on for you? Helping people with doubt. What's the feeling that you're helping them accept and
Well, it's about self-love, isn't it? As you say.
I think it is, but I think that's one form of resolving doubt. I think that it's about feeling lost or at home. If you have doubt, you might not be at peace with yourself. That could be, that is often going to be in play. How many people are at peace with themselves? All that much. But I'm much more at peace with myself than I ever was. I feel much more at home in the universe than I ever did.
Yeah, Dan, you can't be at peace with yourself if you've got chronic grief. What's it called? What did Freud call it? I can't.
Melancholia?
Yeah, melancholia. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't be at peace with yourself if there's this heaviness sitting in you. And that's that part of that doubt, isn't it? That heaviness.
Absolutely. And I think melancholia by definition was a lack of peace with self. It was you're stuck on something.
Yeah.
It's one of the ways that I came to the idea of power as it related to doubt, because if you're stuck in your own journey, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah. Could could I just introduce the word guilt into this conversation for a moment?
Please do.
And
I'm sorry I didn't. I feel bad about it.
What was that?
I just acted out guilt for you. Go ahead.
He's just having some self-pity. Just don't mind him.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of this doubt, etc., that you've been speaking about is that intrinsic feeling that I'm guilty of something, but the people don't know what they're guilty of, and they're really only guilty of their feelings. But I mean, it came to me about when I said about Freud. It like we started looking at guilt within ourselves through Freud, and the fact that am I guilty about being angry? Am I guilty about being sad? Mm-hmm. It's not okay for me to be myself, and that guilt is tied up.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I would say that guilt is a way of saying, am I good enough? Am I good enough for this moment, for this world, for these people?
Yeah. Exactly.
And when you're guilty, your answer is you're essentially saying no. And we need to conquer that. We need to be more loving to ourselves. And go ahead, Rose.
Okay. Dan, in a way, it's more like exposing it rather than conquering it, exposing it to the person so that they get insight into what on earth am I guilty about? Am I guilty about not being enough? I am enough without criticizing myself. I am who I am.
I think you're right.
I'm enough. Yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like this is a theme of things that you and I have said so far, Rose, when we're interacting on these things. That yes, I think you exposure is enough, and it's enough to know it. But I do then I do tend to feel like, well, there's other steps forward. And Tova, you were observing that the term crushing doubt has potentially an aggressive quality to it. And actually, I think that is on purpose, because I want people to be aggressively in their own corner with themselves. I'm not looking for aggression with the world,
right?
But aggression against the part of you that would condemn yourself.
Right.
That's
we
can use here's a take on this. I want to just say something. I think this is going to be profound because it's going to make sense to, Rose will talk about the self-talk, and when we're doubting, it's a voice. It's the ping pong. It's the, yes, no. And, in Judaism, or not in Torah, when you talk about the Kabbalah and Torah, they talk about the evil inclination and the good inclination. And we have this good about us, and then we have this voice. And they say that God gave us that voice purposely to push us, to help us, to challenge us. That God gave us this voice so you can appreciate, and so you could go forward, and you could. I'm losing my thought right now, but it's almost like the doubt, the voice. We can use the doubt to help us. We can use the doubt to grow, to expand, because that's how it's for the good.
Yeah.
That the pain is teaching us something so powerful. Use the pain to propel.
Okay. But Davenlu would call it a punitive super ego. It's punitive. It's okay to have doubt, but it's not okay to be punitive about the doubt.
Yes. And I think one of the ways that can get people out of being punitive to the self, and this is where mind-body work to me is so important, there's nothing wrong with any of you at your core. You can let in the idea that whatever you are, whatever you're experiencing, is not a mistake. It's not wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
You can use every scrap of that. It just is, and you can also use every scrap of it. You can use the hurt. You can use the doubt. You can use the body's pain, to find knowledge and freedom and to love yourself. That's what happened for me. And I didn't even see it coming.
Excellent.
My goal was to just get rid of the pain, but I got so much more than that.
Well,
exactly.
You can't yet. You had to go through it to get. I mean, you couldn't get rid of it. We have to go through it, and that's the strangeness and the loneliness of. And so, no one's alone because we're all going through this. This is a human experience.
Mm-hmm. No, it really is.
There's another human experience that doubt and chronic pain masks, and that's that pure love that we have within our hearts for the world, for everyone, for ourselves.
So true.
And all those other doubts and all those other I'm getting a bit vague, sorry, but all these semis are going by me at the same time.
Yeah,
that makes it hard.
And also think about that. When I just thought about, because Rose, we're made for love, and that also means our parents are made for love. We're all made for love, and so that's where I go back to, like, I don't want to blame. I don't want to go through life like, yes, I have to be angry at my parent, and yes, you have to be, but like we really will go far by being able to respond to the traumas in our life. Dan mentioned adverse childhood experiences before you came on, so he uses the chart a lot in his work, and it's like, how do we get through the trauma? How do we look at our parents and move on? It's all that, like, love. We're made for love.
Yeah. Well, there's a new paper out, I think, from Abbas and Town. I think, I can't remember who else, about ACEs and chronic pain that I read over the last few days as well.
Wow.
The whole idea that our chronic pain has come from the pain in our heart. And I think that's where I always move to love. The heart and love and pain is blocking that expression of it. Put it that way. You can't express it out because the pain is actually within you. Yeah. I can't give it to you precisely, but
yeah.
I love it though. I mean, go ahead, Tova.
I just want to say that, oh my goodness. So who came on to visit you, Rose? So John Sklar and Michael are here because Michael comes on the TMS roundtable. Did you know that Michael Galinsky, did you know that story about you? And he told the story about Michael.
I told him that in the interview. Yeah.
But John Sklar is an amazing guy, and we have to have him on our show because he also creates some trouble between our listeners. He sort of shakes things up. But John Sklar worked with Dr. Sarno for a long time, and then he went out to. He's got a story, but he also turned us all on to the presence process, which is something we do. Do you know about the presence process?
I know the name. I'm not remembering what it is.
Very powerful. We won't talk about it now because it is late. But wait, maybe we should just stay on. John and Michael, it's so good to have you here together, kind of in the bleachers. Do you want to mention anything, John or Michael, about crushing doubt and how you feel about this amazing, like, deep and unbelievable process? It's really, you brought a lot of things about doubt that we could do about fear, crushing shame.
Yeah, well, and I even noticed in the comments people were asking, doesn't it all relate to fear? I think in a way it does, and this connects to what Rose was saying about the self. We're all afraid we're not good enough. That's what we're afraid of at our base. And that's what it was like as little kids. And we carry that with us everywhere we go. And if you want to get better, I think the thing to do is to work on telling yourself and believing it, finding a way to believe in it, that you actually are good enough, just as you are.
And you started out good. And you started out pure, right, Rose?
It reminds me of a little, saying, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief.
Yeah. Yes.
On you.
And to me, the answers come from the answers come from the questions. So I think the questions are within each of you. Ask your questions, get those answered. And that means questions about you too. They can be answered.
Right.
And if you assume love and goodness, that helps. That really does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And God made the solution before the problem. So we are the medicine, and we are the placebo, and we are the doctor, and we are the psychologist. And honestly, the three of us wouldn't have a job if people would believe this, but I want them to know the truth.
Yeah. I mean, we might have a job, but it might be working at a gas station.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, the thing is that if the government's put the funding into maternal and child health rather than prisons, we wouldn't have jobs. We'd have other jobs, and
everything would be better.
Yeah, we'd all be better, and that's all it needs. Is that
I think we all kind of want to put ourselves out of our jobs, even though we love our jobs, because
exactly. That's
we really
the
want to
reason
help
you
these
do it,
people.
isn't it?
Yeah.
That there's one less person that needs you.
Mm-hmm. I did see a comment. Somebody was asking if they could connect with me. Absolutely. I'd love to connect with any of you. Penny, you brought that up. So you can reach me at dan@crushingdoubt.org. Crushing Doubt's also on Twitter. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. So check me out anywhere. Reach out.
No one's going to forget the word doubt after this show.
No. I have no doubt about that.
Do you have
no doubt about that?
No doubt about that. You're funny. It's good to laugh. We got these endorphins going. Going. So I'm going to say, listen, I would love you guys, John Sklar, to come back with Michael. I mean, we really need to get together again, because I see you out there, and it is late, but John Sklar did say they will know the truth, and the truth will set them free. Well, I think that was not John Sklar. I think that was the truth will set them free is oh my God, I'm blanking on
I'm not remembering myself either.
The wonderful man who got anyway.
Listen, you people, I've got another 700 kilometers to do.
Okay.
So I have got a full day's driving ahead of me.
Okay.
Well, Rose, in the story of life,
4 a.m.
In the story of life, we all have much more than 700 kilometers to do.
Well, and Rose, can I mother you a bit and make you please drink some green tea so you can, drive in, because I know it's tiring
and pull over if you get tired.
Oh, of course.
Yes. Lock your doors.
Yeah, I thought of locking the doors. Yeah, I did that when I stopped.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Anyway, listen.
Bye-bye all.
Good night, all, and I'm just blessed. I'm blessed to be partnering with Rose and tonight with Dan. And hey, guess what? Dan wants us to come on his show, Rose, but separately.
Yeah, I mean, you can come on together also, but I'd love
separately.
Yeah, I think. Look, we're sending the message. Everybody's special. You're each special. You're special together, but you're special alone also.
Yeah. Anyway,
all right. Thank you for having me on, guys.
This was like really, truly an amazing night. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. Thank you. God bless you guys. Good night.
Bye.
Okay, we're stopping to stream. Hold on.